Hi there, Brittany here from By Brittany Goldwyn. I post videos about projects and plants, and today we are going to be doing a video about propagating yarrow. Yarrow is one of my favorite native plants to have here in Maryland Zone 7A. It has these beautiful clusters of flowers. It's super hardy, super drought tolerant, and the pollinators absolutely love it. So I have it planted all around my yard, especially around my raised garden beds, to help attract some of those beneficial insects to help with natural pest control. So let's take a look at my plant and then talk about how to propagate it. Okay, please don't judge how my yarrow plant looks. It looks awful. I just divided it and moved half of it to the back of the yard this fall and then put the other half up here, and it is looking pretty bad as it tries to reestablish its root system in its new spot. So it will rebound. Yarrow is a very hardy plant, but it's not looking too hot right now. However, there's plenty of good growth on it to take a couple cuttings for to show you the propagation process. All right, here we go. The world's ugliest yarrow plant. You can see a lot of the foliage that died off when I dug this one up and split it, but you can see it's already rebounding with some amazing new growth. So you want to look for a spot that has all healthy growth, which if you have an established plant, that should not be a problem. And then you really can just break it off, honestly. I'll just pop this one up. And show you how this looks here. So I'm going to take a couple of these. In my experience, I have a lower success rate with propagating yarrow cuttings, better success with dividing them. So I'm going to take a couple to ensure that I can get a rooted plant of this beautiful pink yarrow to share with a friend. Okay, so I'm back in the greenhouse with our cuttings, and I'm going to show you some examples of some bad, some good, and some really good cuttings for your yarrow propagations. Okay, the first thing is you do not want to take like a single leaf like this. See how this just popped off of one of the little plantlets from the yarrow? This will not root. It's just like a little, it doesn't have a growth point on it. Those are the things that I will be pulling off the bottom of some of these cuttings to expose some growth points. So here's an example of a cutting that has too many leaves on it. When a plant has too many leaves and no roots, and you are trying to ask it to develop roots under the surface and to maintain the foliage above the surface, something's going to suffer. So what I like to do is when I find a good cutting like this, I then remove gently all of the bottom leaves. So you're only left with this smaller cutting, but you've exposed all of these growth points down here. And it may seem really tempting to want to root larger plants, because if you root larger plants, then you'll have a bigger, more established plant faster, right? But that actually is not really how it works. You want to start small so your plant can focus on developing a really healthy root system. And then once that root system is developed, everything else will follow with it. Here's one more cutting to show you. This is another good one. This one has a pretty chunky bottom on it here. So I'm going to go ahead and snip that off. And then I'm just going to remove, again, some of these larger leaves. This one I'll leave a couple extra on just to see how things go with this one. So, well, let's do this one. Let's do this. And then when you're pulling your little cuttings from your yarrow plant, if you are able to pull something that actually has like a nice root on it like this, obviously this is going to root like super fast. This is often the case with yarrow plants because yarrow spreads under the surface of the soil by producing little babies and then popping up. So you end up getting this really large full plant. So I can say with almost certainty that this cutting right here is probably going to root. This one is going to be a success because I was able to snag a little bit of a root. But we're hoping they all root, right? I will show you how to pot them up in the next step. So for these yarrow cuttings, I filled up a little plastic pot with some high quality potting soil. I really like Fox Farm Ocean Forest potting soil. I use it for pretty much everything. And then for these yarrow cuttings, I'm also going to add in a little rooting hormone because although I have heard yarrow is supposed to be a very easy plant to propagate, over the years I have not had a ton of success with it. So I am going to just gently coat the growth point here, the parts that you put under the surface of the soil with some rooting hormone. This is a very optional step. You don't have to do this. I keep the rooting hormone on hand, but half the time I forget to use it anyway. And I'm even gonna dump it in this longer root here. So we have the rooting hormone applied. So now the next step, this one's gonna be a little hard because it's a little longer. I may have to dig this one out instead of just popping it in there. For that little longer one, I grabbed this little seed planting trowel, and I'm just going to use it to dig a little hole here and then pop this bad boy down. I would like all of those growth points to be below the surface, and then I will just gently pack it in around. And for the other cuttings, they don't have long roots that I need to shove under the surface of the soil. So for those, I would just gently pop them down into the soil here, and then kind of pack in around like that. So I am potting these all up in one pot, just so that I can check all the roots at the same time, dump out the pot, probably in like a month or so. It's kind of a risky time of year to propagate, but I propagate all year long. I don't really care. If I have to add a heat mat to add some heat, so be it. But it is still very unseasonably warm here in Maryland, so I'm hoping that I'm not too late to get some of these hardier perennial propagations in. So we have them all in the container here. Now I will just make sure that this soil stays evenly moist over the next month or so. I'm really hoping to get these rooted in time to put them in the ground here in Maryland, zone 7A. If they don't, I'll just try and get them through the winter and then plant them in the spring. So I will do a follow-up here. I will cut to the future and show you what the roots look like when that time comes. Hello. Some time has passed, so I thought we would check in on how the yarrow cuttings are doing rooting in soil. So let's dump them out and take a look at those roots to see if any of the propagations were successful. Okay, so I'm gonna dump them into this little tray, just honestly to keep some of the mess contained, because I did just tidy this greenhouse up, and it looks like we've got some good roots starting on these. So definitely this one is probably going to be, oh, this one looks even better. Got some great roots coming up on this cutting. There you go. This one, nothing yet. We'll pop him back in there, see if we get anything. And then this one has a tiny little root popping up on the side. Kind of hard to see with the soil. So what I'm gonna do actually is I'm gonna go ahead and plant these two, because we're getting kind of late in the season here. They have the start of some good roots, and it just rained a ton yesterday. So that means that the soil is nice and moist, and hopefully transplanting them will be a success. The other two cuttings are still looking really good, which probably means that they have growth points on there and all is good. They just haven't rooted yet. I did just stick them in the little greenhouse in a greenhouse in my greenhouse, which I put a little seedling heat mat in to help with some of these lower temperatures while I get the heating situation figured out in the greenhouse. So I'm gonna pop these two back in soil, but in the meantime, we can consider these two a success. And that is how you root and propagate yarrow plants.